Late on the night of August 8, 2013, Brandon Lawson left his home in San Angelo, Texas, following a heated argument with his longtime girlfriend. His journey took a fateful turn when his truck ran out of gas, leaving him stranded on a desolate road in the middle of nowhere. Just after midnight, Brandon called his brother, Kyle, asking for help and requesting some gas. What followed next plunged the story into chilling uncertainty. A mere 12 minutes after his call to Kyle, Brandon made a frantic 911 call.
2013, 0:50 and 38 seconds.
911 emergency.
Yes, I'm in the middle of the field. It's like we're just pushing some guys over. Right here going towards Javelin on both sides. My truck ran out of gas. There's one car here. You gotta take the bitch to the woods. Quick burn.
Okay, now run that by
me. One I talked to home. I surely ran into him.
Ah, you ran into him. Okay.
That's the first guy.
You need an ambulance?
Yes, no, I need the cops.
Okay. Is anybody hurt? Hello? Hello? Hello?
The cell signal was garbled, but here's the eerie transcript of what he managed to convey. The call abruptly ended, with Brandon's voice trailing off into the unknown. Shortly after this disturbing call, a passing truck driver noticed Brandon's vehicle dangerously parked off the highway's edge and alerted the police. When Kyle arrived with the gas, a police officer was already at the scene. Brandon had an outstanding police warrant, and Kyle knew his brother would avoid any encounter with the authorities. Discreetly, he began calling Brandon's phone, but there was no response. Finally, Brandon answered. His voice was filled with fear and confusion. He claimed he was in a field and injured, urging his brother to find him quickly. Despite an exhaustive search of the area, Brandon was nowhere to be seen. Police launched multiple search parties, combing the region thoroughly, but there was no sign of Brandon Lawson. To this day, his disappearance remains a mystery, leaving everyone to wonder what happened with Brandon that night on the lonely road in Texas. The mysterious disappearance of Trey Olsen began on February 17, 2022. At 1 a.m., she was last seen at a Newton petrol station in her silver Mazda hatchback. After pulling up to the pump, Trey got out of her car and was approached by an unidentified man. This man had been involved in a minor traffic accident with Trey shortly before they both arrived at the station. The two engaged in a brief argument, after which the man walked away. Trey continued to fill her car with petrol and then paid at the window. The attendant seemed to relay some unexpected information to her, which led Trey to walk across the parking lot to a red car that appeared to be empty. She looked inside the vehicle, then returned to her car and drove away. That night marked the last time Trey was seen. The details of her disappearance remain unclear. Her family has stated that they know no reason for Trey to have been in the Newton area. On February 28, police issued a public appeal for information, confirming that Trey's family had not heard from her since the night she vanished. 2 days after this appeal, Trey's vehicle was found abandoned on a rugged road, about 20 minutes away from the petrol station. The road was only suitable for four-wheel drive vehicles. A search of the area uncovered some of Trey's belongings, including toiletries, but there was no sign of Trey herself. the police have urged anyone who was in the area around the time of Trey's disappearance to contact authorities via police link at 131 444. They have also requested the owner of a red ute, seen with its bonnet up on nearby Green Gully Road around the time Trey vanished, to come forward. Trey is described as 165 centimeters tall, with a slight build, black hair and brown eyes. Her sudden and mysterious disappearance has left her family and the community searching for answers. In January 2020, 24-year-old Scott Radigan was living in an apartment complex located in the 800 block of North Randolph Street in Arlington, Virginia. Scott was known for always keeping in touch with his family, so when they stopped hearing from him after New Year's, they grew increasingly worried. Their worst fears were confirmed on January 17, 2020, when a family member went to check on Scott and discovered his body inside his apartment. Devastated by the discovery, the family immediately called the police, and the Arlington Police Department launched a criminal investigation. For an entire year, despite their efforts, the case remained unsolved and cold. Then, in January 2021, a significant development occurred. The police released CCTV footage of a person of interest in Scott's case. This individual, believed to be male, was last seen fleeing in the opposite direction of Scott's apartment on the day his body was found. The suspect was dressed in all black and had taken careful measures to conceal his identity from surveillance cameras and potential witnesses. Investigators also found that the crime scene in Scott's apartment had been tampered with. The perpetrator had used bleach to clean the area, attempting to destroy evidence. Despite the release of the CCTV footage and the detailed investigation, no credible leads have surfaced. The Arlington Police Department described the suspect as a white male, between 5 feet 6 inches and 5 feet 8 inches tall, weighing between 150 and 175 pounds. He has a distinctive pigeon-toed gait, meaning his feet turn inward when he walks. There is currently a $50,000 reward for any information leading to the suspect's arrest. Anyone with information about this case is urged to contact the Arlington Police Department at 703-228-4180. The disappearance of 26-year-old Prisma Rayes is one of the most perplexing and mysterious unsolved missing person cases in recent years. On April 17, 2019, Prisma left her workplace to have dinner with her ex-boyfriend at Ebar Tex-Mex restaurant in Dallas, Texas. Witnesses, including her ex-boyfriend and restaurant staff, reported that Prisma was intoxicated and that the two had an argument at their table. Later that evening, Prisma became entangled in one of Dallas's most unsettling mysteries. After her ex-boyfriend left, Prisma remained at the restaurant until she was refused service. At some point, she contacted her son's babysitter to inform them she would be back no later than 7:30 p.m. However, when Prisma didn't return, the babysitter grew concerned and reported her missing to the police. The Mesquite Police Department began retracing Prisma's last known movements. They discovered that before she vanished, she was last seen driving to the Ross Apartments, where her ex-boyfriend lived, around 5:30 p.m. Surveillance footage showed Prisma entering the parking garage and talking on her phone. She was seen entering the elevator, but there was no video evidence of her leaving the parking garage, and residents did not recall seeing her go that day. Further complicating the case, Prisma's car was found abandoned on April 18, 2019, near the Ross Apartments. Investigators traced her phone and bank accounts but found no activity following her disappearance. One theory suggests that Prisma's ex-boyfriend may be involved. However, the Mesquite Police Department clarified that he was not at home on the day she went missing. Why Prisma went to his apartment complex if he wasn't there remains a mystery. Despite CCTV footage and extensive investigation, Prisma's case remains unsolved. She is described as a Hispanic female with brown hair and brown eyes, standing 5 feet 2 inches and weighing 135 pounds. She was last seen wearing a red polo shirt, blue jeans, and black tennis shoes. Anyone with information about Prisma's disappearance is urged to contact Detective Dustin Barrett of the Mesquite Police Department at 972-285-6336, referencing case number 190-382-44. In July 2004, a chilling incident shook the community of Houston, Texas. 20-year-old Amanda Fleetwood, an aspiring English teacher planning to work in Japan, was tragically murdered in a scenario straight out of a horror film. The mystery remains unsolved despite clear CCTV footage capturing the perpetrator. On the evening of July 10, 2004, Amanda, accompanied by her friend Johnny Trop, visited a local store. During their shopping, they were approached by a man who struck up a conversation. Surveillance footage later showed this man, dressed in a black t-shirt and hat, lingering close to Amanda and Johnny at the checkout. After shopping, this stranger persistently requested a ride from them. Although Johnny initially found this request unusual, he eventually relented. As Johnny drove towards the man's claimed destination, the Tangle Wild South 2 apartment complex, the ride took a horrifying turn. Just as they arrived and Johnny slowed the car to let the man out, he heard 2 loud bangs. The man had shot at them. In a desperate escape, Johnny managed to drive away and seek help despite his injuries. He was placed in a medically induced coma for recovery but survived. Tragically, Amanda did not survive the attack. The community and Amanda's loved ones were left reeling by this brutal act. Determined to find justice, they have continued to appeal for any information that might lead to the capture of the killer. Investigators managed to retrieve a DNA sample from an item left in Johnny's car, but despite this clue, forensic tests have yet to find a match in any criminal database. The suspect, captured on camera with Amanda and Johnny, is described as a black male in his mid-20s, approximately 5 feet 9 inches tall, weighing between 175 and 180 pounds. The Houston Police Department's Homicide Unit, led by Detective Alan Brown, is actively seeking tips and can be contacted at 713-308-3666. Anyone with information is encouraged to come forward to help solve this tragic case and bring closure to Amanda's family and friends. In 2019, 18-year-old Theo Rayes, a young Belgian, was drawn to Byron Bay, Australia, just like many travelers his age. Known for its stunning beaches, great surfing spots, and laid-back atmosphere, Byron Bay is a magnet for backpackers and tourists, making it a vibrant, transient town. But for Theo, this trip would turn into a mystery from which he would never return. Theo had been exploring Australia for nearly a year by the time he arrived in Byron Bay. He had spent much of his time down under with his cousin, Lisa Rayes, who described him as a responsible and level-headed traveler. Theo wasn't the typical party-loving tourist. He was more interested in experiencing Australian culture and the country's natural beauty. When he arrived in Byron Bay, Theo stayed at the Wake Up Hostel and soon made friends with other young travelers. On May 31st, Theo and one of his new acquaintances took a shuttle bus into town. CCTV footage captured them at 7:45 p.m. buying a bottle of wine, which they later shared with friends back at the hostel. Later that evening, they decided to visit a notorious bar called Cheeky Monkeys, known for its rough crowd and aggressive bouncers. Despite its reputation, Theo seemed to be enjoying himself, dancing with the other backpackers he had met. At around 11 p.m., Theo bought 2 drinks at the bar but was soon escorted out by security. The guard claimed Theo was stumbling and had too much to drink, but other witnesses said Theo was sober and behaving politely. CCTV footage showed Theo looking confused but compliant as he was led out and had his photo taken by the guard. At 11:07 p.m., security cameras captured Theo walking alone down Kingsley Street into the cold, quiet night. This was the last time anyone saw Theo Rayes alive. Everyone assumed he was heading back to his hostel, but his Google location data told a different story. Instead of heading towards the hostel, Theo walked in the opposite direction. After leaving the bar, Theo sent several text messages in French to friends back in Belgium. He even watched part of a TV show on YouTube and messaged his sister on WhatsApp. He frequently checked Google Maps, looking for routes back to his hostel, but strangely, he ended up walking towards a youth activity center and then stood in a sporting field for 7 minutes. This field was known as a hangout for homeless people and drifters. At 11:30 p.m., Theo began walking quickly through the Milne track towards Tallow Beach, moving at a fast pace despite the darkness and thick bushland. He never slowed down, navigating the treacherous terrain with surprising speed. Eventually, he reached the beach and headed towards Byron Bay's lighthouse. During all this time, Theo continued texting his friends and sister, and his messages showed no sign of distress. At 12:56 a.m., Theo sent his final message to a friend. 6 minutes later, his phone went into sleep mode and stopped transmitting data. Strangely, his phone reconnected at 6 a.m. and again at 1:47 p.m., but after that, it was never heard from again. In the following days, Theo's family grew increasingly worried when he didn't call, which was unlike him. On June 6th, they reported him missing, sparking a massive search effort. Helicopters, drones, cadaver dogs, trackers, divers, and even rock climbers scoured the area. The local community joined in, putting up missing person posters and helping in the search. Theo's parents flew to Australia, pleading for any information that could lead to their son. Despite the extensive search, no trace of Theo was found, except for his baseball cap, which was discovered near Tallow Beach in July. So what happened to Theo Rayes? 3 main theories emerged. Misadventure: Theo might have decided to explore the bushland, reach the beach, and then climb the cliffs towards the lighthouse, only to tragically fall into the sea. But if he fell into the ocean, why did his phone reconnect later? Foul play: some believe Theo met someone who led him through the bush and harmed him. This could explain the strange route he took and why he seemed comfortable texting his friends. Navigation error: Theo might have followed faulty Google Maps directions, got lost in the bush, and succumbed to the cold. But why didn't he call for help or mention being lost in his messages? Other theories suggest he might have been given bad directions, unknowingly taken a substance, or had his phone stolen. Despite these theories, Theo's fate remains a mystery. His family still hopes for answers, and a $500,000 reward is offered for any information that could solve the case of Theo Rayes. On February 17, 2021, Felicia, a young girl known for sharing light-hearted and playful content on her TikTok profile, posted something very different. Her usual fun videos were replaced by a disturbing and serious message that alarmed her small following. Earlier that day, Felicia's father had left their home to visit the local shops, leaving Felicia alone with her younger brother. It seemed like any other day, but things took a frightening turn when their neighbor began knocking on their door. The knocking wasn't gentle or casual, it was persistent and aggressive. Felicia, scared and not knowing what to do, decided to post a TikTok video. She hoped that someone would see it and understand that she needed help.
Привет, у меня сейчас жесть история. У нас там сосед, он пьяный. Он, стучится на дверь, всю ломает нафиг. Он уже несколько минут здесь стоит, стучится, орёт, матерится. Мне страшно.
The knocking continued for more than an hour. During this time, maintenance workers were at the house, but they chose to ignore the situation. They might have thought it wasn't their place to get involved, and it's unclear why Felicia didn't approach them for assistance. Finally, the knocking stopped. Relieved but still scared, Felicia received a message from a friend inviting her to go to the park. Seeking the comfort and safety of her friends, Felicia agreed immediately and waited for her friend to arrive. As Felicia waited, her father returned home. Just moments after he arrived, there was another knock on the door, but this time it was softer. Felicia thought it was her friend and went to open the door. But instead of her friend, she was confronted by their neighbor, Vasile Denit. Before she could react and close the door, Vasile, a 33-year-old man, shot her multiple times. Felicia's father, who was nearby, rushed to her side. He screamed for the maintenance workers to call for help as he held his daughter in his arms. In her last moments, Felicia managed to utter a few heartbreaking words to her father, "Dad, I have been killed." Vasile Denit had been on generally good terms with Felicia's family, but recently there had been arguments between them over noise complaints. This tension had likely built up over time and led to Vasile's harassment of the children. It ultimately resulted in the tragic event that took Felicia's life just 15 minutes after she had posted her TikTok video. For over 8 years, the family of Robert Hutchinson has been desperately seeking answers to the unsolved mystery of his disappearance. Despite their relentless efforts, they remain no closer to understanding what happened to him. The family fears that Robert is no longer alive, but his case remains unresolved. Robert Hutchinson, a 56-year-old grandfather, was last seen on June 23, 2014, in Sunderland, England. He was a devoted father to 2 adult children and a loving grandfather to his grandson. Known for his kind nature and ordinary life, Robert had no known enemies or reasons for anyone to harm him. On the day he vanished, Robert had spent time with his family. He gave his daughter a ride home after she had spent the day with her cousin. They had plans to meet up the following morning after she took her son to school. Later in the day, Robert visited a petrol station. CCTV footage shows him filling up his blue Nissan Micra. The video, released to the public in hopes of finding leads, shows nothing out of the ordinary. After leaving the petrol station, Robert presumably returned home. He was last seen at 6:20 p.m., leaving his house. The details of this sighting are unclear, but it remains his final confirmed appearance. The next day, his car was found parked on a residential street about 10 minutes from his home. When his family couldn't reach him for a few days, they reported him missing, and the investigation into his disappearance began. In the early stages of the investigation, 3 individuals were arrested on suspicion of being involved in Robert's disappearance, but they were not charged. Since then, there has been little progress. The police believe that someone in the community knows what happened to Robert and that he did not disappear by choice. A reward has been offered for any information that could help solve this mystery. Anyone with information is urged to contact Northumbria Police or Crime Stoppers. Robert's family continues to hold on to hope for answers and justice for their missing loved one. On February 25, 2014, an off-duty police officer and his wife were enjoying a leisurely walk along Perranporth Beach in Cornwall, southwest England, accompanied by their dog. What started as a serene stroll soon turned into a haunting discovery, sparking a mystery that remains unsolved to this day. As they wandered along the sandy shore, about 100 feet in front of the watering hole bar, they spotted a peculiar shape near the water's edge. Initially, they joked it might be someone who had drowned, although they also considered it could simply be a couple of plastic containers washed up by the tide. Curiosity led them closer, and their initial dark jest turned out to be tragically accurate. Lying face down in the wet sand was a man, later identified as 64-year-old Alan Geel, a sight that would soon unravel into a perplexing enigma. Alan was discovered wearing only socks and one shoe, his body eerily marked by the sea. A headphone cord trailed down his torso, and nearby, a sweater had washed ashore, stained with a small amount of biological material. The officer noticed something particularly odd. A pair of headphones and a sock were found inside Alan's mouth. This peculiar detail hinted at a deeper, more disturbing context than a mere accident. The officer swiftly called 999, prompting the beach to be cordoned off as a crime scene. The investigation into Alan Geel's final hours began with a dive into his recent movements, piecing together the last known footage and details of his day. CCTV footage revealed Alan at 11:52 a.m., strolling past Bridge Tools in Waterbridge. 18 minutes later, he was seen withdrawing £100 from an ATM on Molesworth Street before entering a nearby Co-op store, where he purchased a newspaper and a box of plasters. Returning home, at 12:50 p.m., raised voices were heard emanating from his flat, a potentially critical but enigmatic clue in the unfolding mystery. Later, at 4:45 p.m., CCTV captured Alan once more, this time heading toward the center of Waterbridge with a backpack. His journey continued as he caught a Greyhound bus to Truro, arriving at 6:14 p.m. For the next half hour, he wandered around the city centre, a solitary figure amidst the evening bustle. At 7 p.m., he boarded another bus, this time to Newquay, where he was observed walking along East Street. Alan's travels didn't end there. At 9:15 p.m., he took a bus back to Perranporth, retracing his steps to the beachside town. The last sighting of Alan Geel was at 10:27 p.m., walking along Beach Road, a short distance from where his lifeless body would be discovered the following morning. Despite an extensive investigation, the circumstances surrounding Alan Geel's death remain shrouded in uncertainty. How did he end up in the water? Was foul play involved, or was it a tragic accident? The case of Alan Geel is a haunting puzzle, a series of cryptic events leading to a solitary figure found on a lonely beach, leaving behind more questions than answers. In the serene setting of Han River Park, two friends, son Jungman and friend A, decided to spend a relaxing evening together. They enjoyed some food and a few drinks, savoring the peaceful ambience of the park. As the night wore on, they eventually succumbed to sleep in the park, seemingly ending their day on a tranquil note. However, the events that unfolded in the early hours of the next morning would cast a long shadow over their lives. At around 4:30 a.m., friend A claims he awoke to find that son Jungman was nowhere to be seen. Frantic and disoriented, he searched the park but couldn't locate his friend. With growing concern, son was reported missing shortly thereafter. 5 days later, the search came to a tragic end when son's lifeless body was discovered in the Wan River. Initial police theories leaned toward a tragic accident, but as the investigation progressed, troubling details began to surface, suggesting there was more to the story than met the eye. The first signs of suspicion arose when investigators noted that son had sustained a head injury, a detail inconsistent with a simple accidental drowning. Additionally, it was revealed that friend A had returned home from the park with son's cell phone in his possession. Friend A explained that he was using it because his phone was broken, a claim that police verified. Yet, suspicions deepened when it came to light that friend A had discarded the shoes he had been wearing that night. Adding to the perplexity, friend A's immediate response upon discovering son was missing was to call his parents, not the police. His parents then rushed to Han River Park to assist in the search for son. Unable to find him, they decided to contact son's parents and inform them of his disappearance. This unusual sequence of actions raised eyebrows further when neither friend A nor his parents attended son's funeral, sparking widespread suspicion among those who knew them. many began to suspect that friend A was hiding crucial information about what happened that night. CCTV footage from earlier in the evening offered more clues. The two men were captured on camera inside a convenience store, where friend A could be seen wearing the shoes he later discarded. Subsequent footage showed them at the spot where they had their meal. In later videos, friend A's shirt appeared stretched out, and his shoes looked wet, implying he might have been in the water with Son at some point during the night. This contradicted his initial claim that he woke up alone, unaware of Son's whereabouts. Despite these inconsistencies in his story, friend A has not faced a formal investigation by the police. Public outcry led to the creation of a national petition demanding a thorough investigation into the events of that night. Yet, as of now, the circumstances surrounding Son Jungman's death remain a mystery. The hope persists that with time, the investigation will yield answers and bring clarity to this tragic and puzzling case. On December 4, 1986, a young mother named Nikki Dubin gave birth to her first child, Luke, at the tender age of 17. Despite her youth, Nikki dedicated herself to providing a stable and loving home for Luke, sacrificing the typical joys of teenage life. Luke grew up to be a well-mannered and compassionate young man, known for his kindness and eagerness to help others. In one cherished memory, Nikki recalled how Luke, during a concert at his old school, had rushed to assist a nervous 11-year-old musician who couldn't tune his guitar, alleviating the boy's embarrassment without hesitation. After graduating from Farlingay Secondary School, Luke pursued a music course at Colchester Institute in Colchester, Essex, about 36 miles from his home in Hollesley, where he lived with his mother and younger sister Felicia. Luke enjoyed his studies but found the commute, involving 2 buses and a train, exhausting. After a year, he decided to drop out, a decision that left him feeling lost and directionless. However, a job at a greengrocer in Aldeburgh reignited his sense of purpose, and at 19, Luke seemed optimistic about his future. But fate had other plans. On May 12, 2006, Nikki Dubin's life was irrevocably changed. The previous evening, May 11th, had been a time of joy and celebration in the Dubin household. Nikki was entertaining a friend from Australia, while Luke's friend Alex had come home from London for the weekend. Luke, Alex, and another friend, Zach, planned a night out in Ipswich, intending to spend the rest of the weekend with their families. Luke left home on his new motorcycle, carrying his wallet, keys, phone, and a change of clothes. He arrived at Alex's house, where he left his bike, phone, and keys, planning to spend the night there and return the next day once sober. The trio first enjoyed drinks at a local pub before taking a taxi to Ipswich town centre for a night of revelry. They ended up at the Zest nightclub, where Alex eventually left after becoming too intoxicated, leaving Luke and Zach to continue the fun. At some point during the night, Luke and Zach got separated when Zach went to get drinks at the bar. When Zach returned, Luke was nowhere to be found. Assuming Luke might have met someone and left, Zach thought little of it. Unbeknownst to him, Luke was wandering the Ipswich town centre, his last movements captured in unsettling CCTV footage. Luke exited the Zest nightclub around 2 a.m. Between 2:30 and 3 a.m., he was seen at the Ipswich train station, where staff informed him that no trains would run until morning. After being asked to leave, Luke, who appeared to be in good spirits and not overly intoxicated, complied without issue. By 3:45 a.m., CCTV captured Luke at the Hawk Express taxi rank on Old Foundry Road. Google Maps shows that this is about a 21-minute walk from the train station, but why Luke chose this particular taxi rank remains unclear. Inside the office, Luke spoke to the receptionist, trying to arrange a taxi home, but realized he had no money as his wallet was back at Alex's house. The receptionist offered Luke the phone to call his mother for her card details, but he declined, not wanting to wake her due to her early work schedule. Unable to secure a taxi, Luke left the taxi rank and headed for the bus station. The last known footage of Luke shows him at 4 a.m., crossing Dog's Head Street toward the bus station. After this moment, Luke Dubin vanished, leaving no trace. As Luke failed to make contact with anyone throughout May 12, Nikki began to worry. By the next morning, her concern turned to panic when she realized no one had heard from him. She learned from Alex that Luke's phone, wallet, motorcycle, and keys were still at his house, untouched. Fearful for her son's safety, Nikki called the local hospital and, finding no news there, contacted the police. The Suffolk police quickly launched an investigation. They uncovered CCTV footage of Luke at 4 a.m., crossing the road just before a silver or white Volvo 440 passed by. This vehicle became a critical focus of the investigation when police discovered the registration details were fake, suggesting the car was an illegal taxi, a common problem in Ipswich at the time. These unauthorized taxis were known to prey on vulnerable individuals, robbing and sometimes assaulting them. Further complicating the case, evidence suggested Luke was involved in using and possibly buying illegal substances, raising the possibility of dangerous associations or outstanding debts. Despite these theories, the police found no concrete leads and the investigation stalled. Despite extensive searches involving police helicopters, sniffer dogs, and community volunteers, no trace of Luke was ever found. Reports of unconfirmed sightings trickled in, but none could be verified. One witness claimed to see Luke near Foxhall Stadium early on May 13, but this was never confirmed. Another possible sighting placed Luke in a dark blue car near the Turbine Centre car park in Woodbridge, hinting at a potential kidnapping related to unpaid debts. In 2011, Luke's name surfaced when a couple in Brixton used his details fraudulently. Although questioned, they provided no information about his whereabouts. Luke's case, handed over to the Major Investigations Team in 2010, remains one of Suffolk Police's most perplexing unsolved cases. Nikki, reflecting on the ordeal, expressed hope that Luke might have chosen to start a new life elsewhere, though she admitted the likelihood was slim. Luke Dubin was last seen wearing a black and grey long-sleeve collared shirt, a purple and grey striped sweatshirt, faded denim jeans with a motif on the thigh, and brown suede moccasin-style shoes. Anyone with information is urged to contact Suffolk Police at 01473 613 513 or anonymously via Crime Stoppers UK at 0800 555 111.